Hey guys, this is Derek with Hero Optic, and today we are checking out a new scope from Vortex. Now if you are one of those Vortex haters out there, pay attention because this one definitely deserves some consideration. Now what this is a new Razor LHT. I have the original one right here, and this is a 3 to 15 by 50 in this example, or you could get it with a 42. And it's a really good scope. It has really good glass. The turrets are very nice. It is a very ideal scope for sort of medium range hunting. Now where it came up short for a couple people are two areas. One, not exactly a particularly powerful optic. 3 to 15 is enough for most types of hunting in the US, but that's where the new one really comes in. The old one, 3 to 15, new one, 4.5 to 22. Now this allows more precise shots at a further distance, but even if you don't really hunt that far, you can still use the extra power to look at an animal at closer ranges before making the shot. Now the reticle on this is going to be the XLR2, which is very similar to the EBR-7C. If we put them side by side, you'll see that they are in fact very similar, but there are small little differences, like on the windage area, the lines are just a slightly different style. But mostly the difference comes down to the fact that the 7C, when it lights up, the whole thing lights up. The main reticle and the branches of the tree, if you want to call it that. On the XLR2, it's just the main vertical and horizontal sections that light up. Now the first LHT is second focal plane, which is a point that a lot of people didn't like. It was a deal breaker for many, despite the other redeeming features of it. That's where the new one comes in as well. It is, thankfully, first focal plane. And I think that that's going to be a more common thing for long range hunting. I mean, it's been the way for long range tactical shooting for a long time, but I think for hunting, since people are shooting at further and further distances, I think first focal plane is definitely the future there as well. The benefit of that, of course, is you can use the reticle no matter what power that you're on. So let's say there's deer at 400 yards. Now, I don't want to be at 22 power for a shot like that typically. I mean, usually with good glass, I would probably make that shot at around 10 to 12 power, maybe 15. But I can use the reticle at that power. So if I'm shooting something like 6.5 PRC, that's only about 1.5 mil drop at that distance. So I can just hold above the target by 1.5 mils. Throw a wind in there if I need to, and then take the shot. Now, if it was second focal plane, I'd have to be on a specific magnification for that reticle to be accurate. So I know exactly what 1.5 mils is. On the old scope, it had to be set at 15 power to use the reticle. And that's fine for second focal plane, but on a 22 power scope, definitely don't want to be on 22 all the time. Now, if you are one to start picking holes in this, you will probably say that first focal plane at low power is very difficult to see. And that might be true on some scopes, but not for this, because the zoom ratio is only about 4.8. So it's not really like you have super low and super high power. The fact that it's 4.5 to 22 is not a wide zoom range, but it does mean that at low power, even on deer in low light, you can still use that reticle. At 4.5 power, you really don't see the extra details of the reticle, but you do see the main vertical and horizontal. And at 4.5 power, as long as you're shooting close anyway, I really don't see a problem with that. When you zoom it in, you typically start to see the actual details of the reticle at around 8 power. Now, as I've said before, it does have a lighted reticle, and that does get fairly bright. So especially in low light, especially at lower magnification, you can use that to really help to see the reticle. Okay, some other relevant numbers. It has a 30 millimeter tube, a 50 millimeter objective lens, and it weighs in at 21.7 ounces, which is fairly light for a scope that'll take you to and beyond 1,000 yards, depending on caliber. The official length on this scope is 13.19 inches, which is actually a little bit shorter than the standard LHT. Maybe a 1/4 inch or so, but it really depends on the setting of the diopter, which I did notice on this scope has a lot of adjustment to it, and it's very fine as well. So if you find yourself having to turn the diopter about 1,000 million times to get the eyepiece set right, don't worry about it, that's how it is. For turrets, the windage is capped, which is good, and the elevation turret is locking as well. This is the mil version, which has 6 mils per turn and 22.4 total. The MOA version of this scope has 15 minutes per turn for a total of 75. So for scope mounts on this, the mathematical perfect MOA would be about 37, but I wouldn't get too worked up with that. 20, 30 MOA would be fine on this scope. Like some other Vortex scopes, it does use their RevStop system. That way you can come back to your zero quite easily. I really advise putting that in. It's a little ring that'll come with the scope here, because the scope turret itself does not translate. It's got no lines on it to give you reference as to where you're at in the travel. So as long as you have that RevStop installed, you can always go back to zero to re-index yourself as far as where the travel is. The eye relief is a generous 4 inches. That way, if you put this on a super lightweight, high recoiling Magnum hunting rifle, you won't get the kiss of death in your eye. And for parallax, it has a minimum setting of 25 yards. So to wrap up, this is a lightweight, very capable medium to long range optic from Vortex. It'll retail for about $1,500, but we do honor the Vortex law enforcement and military discount program. So if you qualify, please reach out to us to set that up. So that'll wrap it up for this. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and subscribe. You can find us on Facebook and Instagram, and we'll see you next time.